preparing in between each tournament in jiu-jitsu to compete against another person who's been preparing at the same time as you. So in the same, comparative to like soccer, they do have a season, but they do have scrimmages and games all throughout the year. Jiu-jitsu is no different in that we're preparing. The one thing that if you train jiu-jitsu, which you should understand is, imagine whatever sport you played as a kid or in high school, but you took away the games. Like if you go to a high school or you go to a junior high school and you practice all week, high school and even college, you practice all week. And the older you get, the smarter you get, the stronger you get. You're starting to put in some more muscle and some more time and some more smart training all throughout the week. And at the end of the week, you take a break and then you just come back and do it again. When are you ever going to test yourself? So jiu-jitsu is the same as all those sports where, it might not be every week, but every month or every couple months, like it's hard work. It's, it's like there's something we had in football, which is called Hell Week. And it was like 2 weeks, but leading up to the start of the practice season, all the captains and all the people who are like, I'm committed to football, I'm making this, a tough season, a great season for us. We would get together before and we would push cars around. We would throw tires at each other, play catch with tires. And we would just do some really run up hills and pulling people in sleds. And we did that to prepare for the beginning of the practice season. And then we practiced and then we prepared for the games every week. And we actually tested out our skills.
So let me, Coach Mom, we had some tech errors there. It looks like we kind of just got back with the internet and live here. Yeah. Can you recap a little bit? Like we're talking about just kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about jiu-jitsu being a sport and how a lot of people here, they think of it being MMA. They think of it being the UFC. We're talking about jiu-jitsu as a sport and jiu-jitsu as a self-defense, kind of these, you just mentioned it being more mainstream and how it compares. So we're talking about, you said jiu-jitsu is a year-round sport, and if you're going to commit to that, one, you're not going to get much out of it 1 or 2 days a week for a few months. So if you're going to commit to it, that's what it takes to be good. And it also, you said it takes 3 to 4 days a week to kind of train at that. Is that right?
Yeah. Can you hear me clear?
Yeah, I hear you. Looks like our Wi-Fi is kind of got like, it's a little some coffee, but that's what we're talking about. Jiu-jitsu.
Can you hear me clear now?
Yeah, I can. Yep. So we're talking about jiu-jitsu being a mainstream sport versus the others. Obviously, you've done both. Like you've trained just about every sport, traditional sport there is. I didn't.
Yeah.
So, but we obviously both found jiu-jitsu later in life. So, so like that, just kind of recapping that. What's the time commitment? What if they play other sports? I mean, because there's a time commitment. What if jiu-jitsu? There's a financial investment to that.
Yeah.
Basketball at Wyandotte Middle School. I mean, for whatever it is, we'll call it whatever value's there. Like it's, to my knowledge, is it still free? Is it still covered in your taxes?
Not anymore. Actually, I believe you have to pay for any
school. You have to pay.
I believe, if somebody on here can correct me, now in order to play football or basketball, there is a nominal fee that you have to pay. I mean, growing up, it was all free.
So your taxes, is that just another example of that our taxes don't really pay for shit? Is that just another example of that?
I don't know where that money's going, but
Stephanie says you have to pay. How much do you have to pay, Steph? Wow. I'm angry for everyone involved.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying is you practice all week in basketball, football, and at the junior high and high school level and even college level. And you always have a group of people that want to train more. They want to train harder. They really want to dial in. And in jiu-jitsu, we call it a competition team.
Yeah.
So imagine at the end of a 4-day, 5-day practice week in high school sports or soccer or football that you pay for, you don't get to play against anybody. Like, when are you going to test your skills?
Wow.
So sport jiu-jitsu is no different than any other sport where at the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the quarter, like you went through a tough training regimen. Now you get to go test it. And that's why sport jiu-jitsu is no different than any other sport in that you get to test it against other people. And if you don't, then it just becomes like an intramural hobby that you never really know if you're learning anything.
I'm flabbergasted at this. Tammy says we have to pay and it's not inexpensive. What do your school taxes go towards? Not like, honestly, like that entire organization is funded. The coaches are volunteers. What are you paying for?
Coaches get paid.
Oh, the coaches get paid now. Okay.
Yes,
all right.
the coaches. Yeah.
How much do you pay, Tammy? How much do you pay, Steph, for like, let's say I want my kid to get a concussion. I enroll him in football. How much do I have to pay for that? Like, so answer that question in the chat. That got me messed up right now. I thought school sports were free. And I was like, okay, whatever, they're free. So you get what you pay for. You're going to get like a concussion. You're going to get like your kid's going to get bullied. They're going to experience jocks versus not the cool kids that like the star stuff. You're going to get all that. It's a separate day. We need a podcast about money and why government officials shouldn't be allowed to handle any of it. But I digress. $200 for my daughter's softball.
Wow.
Is anyone else outraged by that? Like, when did, because it was free for me. Like, if we wanted to play, if you made the cut, you were free because that's what was part of the school's program.
No, not everybody makes the cut in school sports anymore.
Same with you had to make the cut. You had to try out. You had to make the team.
Yeah.
But if you did, there was no cost to it. Now they would do fundraisers and stuff. It was $140 for flag football.
You know, I'll tell you what.
Elementary school. It's not even real school yet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that really bothers me is Taekwondo today. I'm not talking about 20, 30 years ago. Is Taekwondo today a sport, or is it like David Fox self-defense?
Taekwondo, by my evaluation, is a dance class.
Taekwondo is exercise.
And it's exercise. I will add, they do a very good job with character development. I'll give them that. Like a lot of schools, but they have to, because you're not learning self-defense.
Yeah.
Like you like how many we were at a corporate event down in Tampa, and like the jiu-jitsu guys have a reputation, and there were some black belts there who hadn't been on the mat to teach or at all in 5 years.
You were dancing at that event, by the way. I had some videos I can post of you.
Like, how do you imagine? Honestly, professor, imagine you're the professor. You own the school. Like, hey, here's the owner. Cool. You haven't been on the mat in 5 years.
It's hard to see that.
It's hard. I can't fathom that. My mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a coach, maybe I could see it if I was like, I don't know. I mean, everybody wears a different hat, but you should be on the field or the court or the mats where your athletes are at. I mean, that's where you get most dialed in.
You lead by example. Like, I don't know.
I agree.
And Coach Alvarez has like the Alvarez Army. I really like his Spartan theme he's got going on. Imagine like I came to class on Sunday under Jabril's class, and I was just a student. When Coach Jimmy teaches takedowns, I'm just a student. Like you've got to lead that by example. And I don't know. Let me ask this. Maybe this is so in traditional sports, like say football. Who's the coach, and what are their credentials? And when was the last time they played a game? Can you answer that for me? Because I'm like this. I'm learning about this. Apparently, I'm getting more and more angry. I think if you're paying for school basketball, I thought they were free this whole time. Like that's got me messed up. So what's Wyandott's football credentials? When was the last time he was on the field playing?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, anybody. Like what? Like who are your coach's credentials? Like you see me, I'll be competing at Grappling Industries this April. Like I competed a lot last year. You competed. Coach Jabril competes. Like you don't have to. Like no one has to wonder if we still got it. Like we go out there and we lead when we can. Not every tournament, but we still compete. Like I for damn sure still train. Like who's the guy? Like who's the guy? What's their credentials? Are they studying tape? Like, what's their credentials?
Well, I mean, you don't typically the basketball coaches and the football coaches and tennis and even soccer, typically those guys go into coaching when they're well past their prime. So you have to play any of the sports to have an understanding of the game because every single position is going to complement each other. Right. And, in sport jiu-jitsu, it's kind of the same when you're on a team because you have a top position, you have a bottom position, you have a standing position, you have a back position. So you have a bunch of different positions and different teammates are going to bring different strengths to that position. Right. And, you have to train for a decent amount of time to have a good understanding of those and start to develop those different positions. And I think a coach for basketball, football, soccer, whatever it is, you got to be on the field to have an understanding of those positions and what makes each one of them go. So, you can't be playing football at like 50 years old. You just can't do it. Like you have head coaches in the NFL that are just a couple years older than you. And they're coaching the most elite athletes in the world at that, in the NFL. So you don't have to have, it's not like jiu-jitsu where, you have to be on the mat like 2-3 days a week. And even then, coaching is different than performing as an athlete. It's very different, until you get into like your
I agree
40s.
with that. I agree. There was a post in the Midwest Jiu-Jitsu group. This makes me laugh, right? Because I'll go on full record. Like we have a 4-stripe blue belt teaching our jiu-jitsu fundamentals, and obviously we write the curriculum. He teaches it, but like I've been seeing these articles that like should purple belt or the IBJJF they recirculated this article saying brown and purple belts aren't allowed to teach. Okay, tell that to Andrew Wills. He just got his black belt. I watched him run through 98% of our academy as a blue belt, run through our purples, run through our browns, and give our black belt instructor trouble as a 19 or 20-year-old blue belt. So the IBJJF can go fly a kite with that article. They just want to have more people pay for black belt certifications. He said, or should purple belts be allowed to teach? And my statement was, I said, I think a better question is, does wearing a black belt make you a good coach? And like they got tons of reaction and love for it because the ability to coach and the ability to play are two different skill sets. So I'll concede that, which leads me into the next question. So what do you mentioned if you don't ever have a time so you practice. Basketballs have games, footballs have games, they have playoffs, they have all these. How do the games / meets / matches vary between sport jiu-jitsu and traditional, now paid public sports? This is crazy. It's crazy to me. How do they vary? What's the difference? What can I expect?
It's similar to like maybe I don't know, maybe like it's a one-on-one, it's an individual sport with a strong team backing. So it is easy in jiu-jitsu to get the Elvis syndrome. And for people who don't know what that is, it's like you're the best guy on your team and you stand out clearly over everybody else.
Yep.
And it happens with kids too. And it's really unfortunately, it's nurtured with kids in other sports because in from kids until I'd say junior high, maybe there's maybe there's 4 or 5 good kids on the team. In high school, maybe there's 1 or 2. In college, there's like 1. In professional, I'm talking about football, everybody on the team can hit. So high school or college, there's a few of them. High school, you just got a handful of them, maybe 1 or 2. The higher you go up in level, the more it is. And what happens is, because there's so few athletes at soccer, hockey, or whatever, those kids stand out. And they're really, really rewarded on their physical skill, not their contribution to the team. And jiu-jitsu, right. One thing that separates us is a good athlete who's like elite, like better than everybody on the team. The behavior of that high performing athlete should be reinforced by the coach to say that everybody around you got you here. You are clearly better than everybody else. And, that is a problem in sports, is that behavior. You're recognized for your behavior, but but the other people are not recognized equally for their contribution to getting you to become an elite level athlete. And that's a problem, is that, that's why kids, as soon as they get good and they know they're good, their attitudes start to change. They start to act up. If they don't get all this positive reinforcement, you're so good, you're so good, you're so good, they start to act up. They don't get what they want. They go back to saying, well, I'm the man. I've been told I'm good and I'm the best and I could be, the best athlete. But it's never talked about in sports that your team gets you there. Jiu-jitsu is one area that it's not like that. Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing and we've seen that, right? One thing I think you see more in jiu-jitsu that you don't see in sports is it's very easy. I don't know how difficult it is to transfer teams in a school sport. Probably difficult because you have to transfer schools, right?
Yeah.
So, right. So versus, it's really, it's not uncommon to see an elite person, a high performer person, if they're not getting their ego stroked appropriately, that they're just either going to leave. They start school hunting to find where, and they could say, oh, I'm looking for someone who can match my skill. Yeah. I mean, you can and you do, and I think you should, but a lot of times it's just, oh, I wasn't treated with the same respect. And I absolutely refuse to treat one person who's got a little bit of natural athleticism, understands the sport a little bit better, picks it up quicker. You will not be getting attaboy treatment from me. I'll be telling you where you're doing well, and I'll be telling you where you need to improve. I'll be checking your attitude when it's ugly, and I'll be commending you when it's appropriate and profitable. You will not get preferential treatment from me. And I think a lot of times that comes off, and I'm more so than the rest of the coach, a lot of times that comes off as Coach David doesn't care. Coach David is protecting his culture because the 99 other average Joes, if you will, which I call them average Joes, and I'm hesitant to say that because the very fact that you train jiu-jitsu means you're above average. Everyone who's going to train jiu-jitsu is
who you would like is Bill Belichick.
Who's that?
Bill Belichick was he is the head coach of the Patriots.
Okay. All right.
Tom Brady's coach. Well, he traded Tom Brady, but Bill Belichick is a master at fundamentals and expecting all of his team to do the fundamentals with precision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bill Belichick has had some elite. I mean, he arguably had the best receiver in the history of the National Football League. And Randy Moss. Randy Moss got a big head. Randy Moss would just go like this, running down the field. That means throw me the ball, and he would catch the ball. He would score. Randy Moss was like cleaning house. Randy Moss was giving an attitude, and I'm telling you, he was arguably the best receiver in the history. He was clearly nobody could stop him. It was literally like, throw me the ball, I score. It was unbelievable. Randy Moss didn't want to follow the same rules as everybody else. Randy Moss was late to practice. He cut him. Everybody's like, you are crazy. Like, you have to be able to manage personalities. This guy is like, he's the best anybody's ever seen. You know it. Him and his quarterback put up all these records. He's like, you know what? I'm cutting him.
Like, cut him. He kicked him off the team?
Kicked him off the team for some basic stuff. And his expectations weren't met as far as what you contribute to the team and how you act. He cut him.
Because a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Let me tell you about this. So if it's like, how much vinegar does it take to spoil a picture of Kool-Aid?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are professional athletes. They're making millions of dollars a year. Randy Moss was making probably 10 times the amount as the coach, but he didn't care. He's like, look, this is our play. You don't like it. These are our rules. You got to go.
Yeah, I would like. It sounds like I would like that guy.
Oh, you would love him. He doesn't put up with anything from any athlete that like gives him any bullshit. He's a master of the fundamentals.
So what is jiu-jitsu practice though? We talked about the meets and the matches. What does and I want to go back to that real quick. Again, it's been a minute. I'm going to assume like when practices are held in for public school events, basketball, football, whatever, it's quite an organization. You've got dozens, if not hundreds of people coordinating these divisions and these games and the schedule. And there's a lot of money that goes into this because, again, it's subsidized from the state, correct?
Like high school, for example?
We'll say high school. We'll say high school.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And there is bazillions that goes into college, right? So college is a whole different, but that right now is and it's growing, but jiu-jitsu there's not a lot of money in jiu-jitsu yet. There's not a lot of money in jiu-jitsu yet. So these matches, these tournaments are held by independent third-party companies. So Grappling Industries, Newbury, Fuji, Naga, AGF, even the IBJJF, they're third-party independent corporations that they're trying to get as much exposure as they can. They're trying to grow their event just like anyone else and get as many competitors to show up as they can. And so every tournament has a different rule set, what rules are allowed for different balance ranks. And so if you're used to, I'm just thinking of like Friday Night Lights. If you're used to a Friday Night Lights event with a halftime show where the high school band comes out and plays, and then there's a big event, and you can get concessions and everything, like it's a nice night out. Yeah, your jiu-jitsu tournaments are going to be slightly different than that. They're going to be definitely a smaller operation because there's just less money in it. It all comes out of the competitors and the network's budget. There is no state fund for jiu-jitsu. I believe jiu-jitsu should be required in all public school programs. You want to know what would greatly decrease childhood suicide if every kid trained jiu-jitsu? If every kid was forced to be like, hey, when I was in high school, it was 1 year mandatory physical fitness. It was 1 year. You had to take it. Like that should be a requirement in high school. You have to take jiu-jitsu for 1 year. I think everyone would have a lot more respect for other people. At like that would just be a non-issue. And so that's how they're going to compare to mainstream. We'll call it mainstream sports. It's going to be a little bit less well-oiled machines when you do these tournaments. What do the practices compare like though? Like what is a bat compared to a basketball practice compared to like a jiu-jitsu practice if you're competing for that?
Yeah. So for those of you like parents and adults who are like working, like 90% of your time, 95% of your time in jiu-jitsu is basically practice. So there's a couple different types of practice. One are like little run-through practices, right? Run through, checking out, the plays, what you're going to do, seeing where somebody else is going to be. Like it's all really the same on, finding out what your opponent's strategy might do. If your opponent is coming on the inside or on the outside. On football, the defensive end's job is to force him back in the middle to clear the outside, or the offensive end. The defensive end, it wants to push everybody back into the middle And with jiu-jitsu, it's no different. The practices are, some days are more about strategy and technique and really about understanding. And some other days are like really, really physical. There's not that much thinking. There still is, but it's more about like a physical practice. In the NFL, which and even the NBA, which I really like when they get to that level, there's so much study time of your own plays and what everybody's doing and how to execute it. And sometimes they even watch other people's games and see what kind of plays that they run. Jiu-jitsu, the majority of the time, like from day one, it's all about study. Like one thing that does separate jiu-jitsu from football and basketball is, I would call it the film time. There's so much film time and study time in jiu-jitsu from day one that you're forced to make a mind and body connection. The first day you get on the football field and the basketball court, I'll use football, for example, you're hitting pads. It's like hit hard. They need to teach you to be tough. They need to teach you about the contact. It's physical. And jiu-jitsu from day one, it's an intellectual sport. Like sure. It's not by accident when you look around at some of the most successful people in jiu-jitsu, and if they interview, you're like, man, these guys are geeks or they're nerds, outside of a couple of people who are like the alpha male type, there's so many guys in jiu-jitsu and girls who are like, the females are so like feminine and they're badasses. They're really tough. And the guys are like, they're nerds. You pick them out of a lineup every day of the week if you had to fight somebody. So it just goes back to like, from day one thing that separates sport jiu-jitsu is, forget about how tough these people are. You got to factor in that they are very, very intelligent human beings. Very. They know how to make decisions under pressure. They know how to multitask, and they know how to study the movements of their own body, other people's body, and everybody else's body around them.
Is it an accurate statement to say that I could be on the football field, part of like the plays going on, and not experience stress? So let's just say hypothetically, like I'm a receiver.
Yeah.
And okay, 1, 2, 3, hut. I run out, and I'm waiting for the ball. Oh, the quarterback got tackled.
Yeah.
Is that a possible? Like, is it fair to say I didn't really experience a lot of stress in that play?
Yeah, of course.
Is it possible to engage in a jiu-jitsu match and not experience a form of stress?
Unless you know how to manage stress. If you know how to manage stress,
unless you are extremely competent, like we'll say under like less than a year of training, less than 2 years of training.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's where it comes down to, because you take these high schoolers, you take these in college. Well, college is different tier, so we're going to use high school. High school, like you can go out, and because that's what I just remember in my high school. Like, ever seen Harry Potter?
I've heard of him.
Okay, so they got these, the main villain, he's one of the Slytherin kids, got blonde hair, I can't remember his name. He's got these two like sidekicks. They're imbeciles. They play like the dumb sidekick part, right? That's what I remember 80% of the football team being. They like drank milk, did squats, smoked weed, and drank alcohol. Like, that was it. Like, and that's what they did. And they weren't athletic. Like, their BMI was probably 35, 40%. And this is the majority of the team. And like, so when they go, you do have the high performing athletes, like they got to move, like your quarterbacks, your wide receivers, your whatever. But the rest of them just kind of like held people, and they're not experiencing the stress. Going back to that Roosevelt quote, there is extreme stress that goes on to like when your face is getting ground into the mat, when you get taken down, when you're fighting off a choke that's cutting off oxygen to your head, when you're defending an armbar, like so that it doesn't break, you need to perform under levels of stress that the majority of America won't experience.
Yeah.
At a young age, at 6-year-olds are doing this.
Yeah. Well, like many years ago when Michael Jordan lost to Detroit, Pistons, one of the things he said is he's like, physically, they beat us up like the Motor City Bad Boys. And from that era, that was the beginning of an era where all basketball athletes actually incorporated martial arts training and weightlifting to complement basketball. And at that point, you know, in my life too, I would always lift right before or right after I played basketball. So like today, if you met a professional football player or even a Division I football player, you're going to have to respect the size and speed and agility of somebody who's 300 pounds. Like, believe it or not, they would smoke you or I or the fastest person in this gym, regardless of how light they are at 300 pounds. They are fast. They were agile. They were quick. They get martial arts and hand training, you know, to fight off people. So that portion of the athlete, it's evolved a lot. It's evolved a lot.
We're talking about the NFL. Like, if you're going to compare the NFL to the average jiu-jitsu player, like, you should compare the NFL to Gordon Ryan, or the NFL to Andre Galvao. Like those are the people you should be comparing the NFL to, because that's professional to professional.
Yeah, which they couldn't last.
So regarding in what field?
Well, first of all, they could not step in and play any position at that level. They couldn't even step in and play college.
You're saying football?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're training for the football. You're training for football.
Yeah. So you asked, how can you compare the two, like professional athlete to professional athlete? But even those athletes, they don't have the basketball and the football athletes are far more athletic outside of jiu-jitsu or outside of their sport than Gordon Ryan and Andre Galvao are outside of jiu-jitsu. So the profession.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but we're disagreeing with the levels of stress. Like in the levels of stress, the ability to, because you're dealing with stress. Like, no, to my knowledge, I mean, maybe if they've trained martial arts, has a basketball player ever had to like face getting choked unconscious or slammed or broken their arm? Like, has that ever happened?
If you played the Detroit Pistons, not only that, you would get punched, you would get tackled, you'd go up for a layup, and it would be like they weren't even going for the ball. So years ago, yes. Today, no. There is a type of stress that you experience in all sports, man, in all of them. Like a very serious amount of, like, it's crunch time, only a certain amount of time to go. You're managing the score. You're managing momentum, which is the absolute biggest factor in all of sports, is momentum. And but you can't compare anything to somebody trying to, like, literally for a few minutes, they're literally can kill you. Like, literally, it feels like you're getting killed in basketball and football. You're getting demoralized, and emotionally, it's like the wind is sucked out of you. But you can't compare any of those to where, like, you're not fighting. You're fighting for your life. And something that does separate jiu-jitsu athletes from the other athletes is, you and I know you're fighting for your life. You're fighting to avoid injury. You're fighting not to get your arm or your leg snapped where you could be really, really, really injured. And you learn to stay calm and cool underneath all those, because subconsciously, you could get really hurt, but you're forced to stay calm and cool and say, okay, what are the remedies for this situation that can help me get out of trouble and intelligently not just defend myself, but look for opportunities to advance and attack while I'm trying to get killed.
So what does bad sportsmanship look like in traditional sports, soccer, hockey, football, what have you? versus jiu-jitsu? You know, what does that bad sportsmanship look like, and all of the above? Come to compare the two.
Yeah, you know, in jiu-jitsu, I think bad sportsmanship is. I'm going to talk about sport jiu-jitsu. It's more about like attitude, and it's more about the sportsmanship, the non-physical sportsmanship that you do. Because like if somebody went like this in a jiu-jitsu match and tried to choke you, it looks like he's trying to choke you, but actually it's bad technique. It's easy. You know, you just kind of you peel off at the thumb or whatever. Nobody does this. You know, so in jiu-jitsu, the bad sportsmanship is really about like not shaking hands. And that happens in any sport. And like not shaking hands. Like, what are some things that you've seen? Like basketball, football, sports, I can tell you, but like, and bad sportsmanship are more about like how you represent yourself and your team, what they say about you after you're done fighting.
Yeah, how you win and how you lose is the largest one. How you talk to the ref, man. There's a balance. Like as a coach, you want to obviously lobby for your athletes, for your competitor against the ref. Like make sure they're getting a fair shake. And then there's just like you're whining like my toddler does to the ref. And we've seen coaches. There's coaches I know, like I like walking into a tournament. I was like, I will bet $500 of my personal hard-earned money that this coach is going to pitch a fit every like 80% of matches. He's going to throw his hands up and get upset if his athletes lose and blame it on the ref. It's never the coach's fault. It's never the athlete's fault.
Well, you know, let me stop you there, because in all of sports, there is a strategy and an art to getting in the referee's head. And in all of sports, a bad coach should never keep quiet and not say anything. And there's
I'm not talking about like counting points, 1, 2, 3. All right, that's 3. We're talking about the ref has made a call. The ref has made a call, and now the call's final. The call's final. And you're just we're arguing about every time. Like now it's a circuit court debate over this one match. And then that match is over. And then 2 matches later, the ref has made a call again, and he's doing it again. I'm like, dear God, bro, like throw a vest on and be a ref if it's that easy. Yeah. Because we're not talking about defending your athlete. We're talking about, I mean, if 80% of the time you're arguing with a ref, who's the problem? Is it really the ref or is it the coach?
Yeah. You shouldn't be arguing with the ref 80% of the time, but you have to in sport and in sport jiu-jitsu, you got to get into the ref's head. You absolutely have to. Some people do it without taste. Some people do it and it's ugly. You know, some people do it with a handshake. Some people do it with talking to the ref before, during, after. There's different ways to do it, but the strategy to winning at sports also includes a strategy to getting inside the ref's head. I'll give you an example that everybody might see. In soccer, you have, I'll just take like junior high or high school, you have junior referees reffing, and usually there's one main ref, right? A strategy to getting inside the ref's head is, you know, throwing little comments off at the junior referee on the side and making comments to the main referee to talk to the junior ref. He's not seeing this and he's not seeing that. And we both know that the junior ref is in training. So let me tell you, in any sport, the absolute, you know who Juwan Howard is? He went to school right down the street from me. He's one of the Fab Five: Chris Webber, Juwan Howard, Jalen Rose. They were the Fab Five at Michigan. They won a national championship at University of Michigan. They were known all over the world as a Fab Five. Juwan Howard went
sport
basketball. So Juwan Howard went on to have a very successful career. You want to talk? He was one of the guys that was clean. Like he just looked clean, acted clean. You know, he wasn't one of the guys who had extracurricular issues that really came up, like some professional athletes. He was just suspended for 5 games, right? And you gotta get into the ref's head and almost put fear in them. The next time they see you, oh man, I don't want to have this big fiasco with this ref. Bill Belichick was suspended, the guy who doesn't put up with shit from his athletes. So as a ref and in any sport, you can't leave it all to the referee because they don't know everything. They do miss calls. In jiu-jitsu, there's not any play-by-play or replays that we can go back and watch. Like the AGF has a flag where you can kind of like football, where you can challenge the play.
I really like the AGF's challenge method because and what they do is they limit you.
Yeah.
You get, I think it's two challenges per coach per team. I think for the event.
Oh wow.
So use them wisely.
Do you
I love that.
Do you get those challenges back if they're overturn the call?
I'm not sure. Like if you win the challenge, I'm not sure.
Because in the NFL, you challenge it. If the challenge goes your way, you get it back.
You get it back. Yeah, I'm not sure if you get it back. But like that's at least a system that's a system in place. And that goes back to kind of that low budget, the money that isn't in jiu-jitsu. Yeah, a lot of them don't have that. Although to my knowledge, I mean, get some beanbags. Like Grappling Industries, Fuji, buy some beanbags. I'll buy you some beanbags if you implement that system.
Yeah.
An example of ugly sportsmanship is how you win.
Yeah.
Like if you went, I pay real close attention to how people win and how people lose.
Yeah.
Like there's this, like if you're losing, there's a certain level of disappointment. I'm not expecting you to be happy about it, but I'm expecting you to show the ref respect, show your opponent respect, shake the coach's hand. Bro, there's coaches that won't shake my hand. There's coaches that are sitting across from me, watching my athlete beat their athlete with 4 seconds left. They know there's no chance and they walk away. So they walk away, and here's what they're doing. They're abandoning their athlete. They're forfeiting the match, not showing any respect to myself, the coach, which I don't give a damn about me. That's fine. Like you got you issues. That's fine. Your life probably sucks. And not showing any respect to my athlete who just beat your athlete.
Yeah.
And so like, there's not an uglier form. And to me, like we had a parent member at first. He went to a non-team tournament, meaning we are not guaranteeing coaches are going to be there. Like we have some people going to Naga. Like I don't know what would have to happen for me to go back to Naga, but we won't be there. And so and he's like, yeah, I was just watching some of these coaches and he's like, that's kind of crazy, their behavior. And with the mindset that your culture is built from the top down, if that's how your coaches are acting, it's no wonder that you have a revolving door of athletes looking for the next best thing, because the coaches are entitled, the coaches are arrogant, the coaches have poor sportsmanship, and that will manifest itself all the way down to the very first person on their first day. And so like that's an example. That's probably the pinnacle of poor sportsmanship. Yeah, there's dirty moves. Yeah, there's dirty techniques. But that's what I see. How you win, how you lose, and how you conduct yourselves. I will say far and wide, it's in the minority of jiu-jitsu. The majority of jiu-jitsu guys are very respectful. The majority of jiu-jitsu coaches are extremely respectful. There's just always a few bad apples. You know what I mean?
So before we end, I just want to touch on females in jiu-jitsu. So okay. For you not playing sports when you were younger and seeing so many females in jiu-jitsu and like be very, very successful, how does that look to you from coming into something like you look at it from the eyes of self-defense, right?
Yeah.
And not as like a sport. So what does it look like through your eyes seeing so many females so successful and like?
I think women need jiu-jitsu more than men. I mean, like you don't hear about a lot of men getting raped. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but like you don't hear a lot of sexual assault cases against men. They're by men against women. And so I think like you want to talk about something like I don't like a lot of women come in and when they're like, hey, yeah, I'm looking for self-defense. What they're saying is I don't want to be taken advantage of. I want my no to mean no. We did an interview with Coach Sarah. It's on our page. She's like, I think if you talk to them, more women than not have been taken advantage of in one way or another. They just don't talk about it. And that's despicable to me. That's despicable to me. So regarding the men, I'm going to build acceptable men. Like we've had this conversation. If I find out that your demeanor outside of my mat is not something I approve, I'll pull up, what's his name? Belichick. I'll kick you off my team. I'll kick you off my team. Honestly, on my life. I don't care. I don't care if you're my number one guy.
Yeah.
Like, I'll kick you off my team. And then regarding the women, like I think women need jiu-jitsu more than men.
Yeah, I agree. I have 4 daughters, and I think that it's a must for girls to take jiu-jitsu. You know, you want to talk about like how easy it is to emotionally infiltrate some females' head or space or life. And I think that emotional barrier, that emotional armor that's created is way more needed as a parent for the females than the males, because, you know, if your daughter falls down and off a bike and scrapes her knee, and then your son falls down and scrapes his knee on a bike, we're more like, you know, we're probably gonna baby our daughters a little bit more. And you know, and I learned honestly through the last 4 years of being at Metro is that girls are actually in some ways tougher and more competitive.
Without question.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't see that. And, you know, like girls are a minority, like, you know, African-American walking down the street with a whole group in a completely white crowd is going to stand out, right? Black. He's the minority. Everybody's looking. He stands out. People are looking at him. And, or any minority for that example, females, I believe, stick out equally when they are out and unprotected and don't have that armor around them. And, you know, both are basically vulnerable. And, you know, given that African-American, given the female, something like an armor that when they stand out so much and they could feel so vulnerable, jiu-jitsu definitely for me is a must for females and minorities, honestly.
Yeah, well, and even, you know, even if I think there's a mental strength, right? Like a lot of women are let's take generally, I believe a lot of women are, especially today, are more mentally strong. A lot of them, not all of them, than the men. Like you take like the cumulative average, you're dealing with what we're seeing, and this is maybe a different podcast, different time. You're seeing the decay of masculinity, and not toxic masculinity. I hate that those two are combined together. Masculinity is a good thing. I have plenty of mothers watching us right now who like that our gym is masculine, who like that we have positive male role models because the other men in their kids' life abandoned them. He was not masculine. He was adolescent. And so because you're seeing that decay of masculinity and manhood, these women are now having to play both roles. These women are having to play. I mean, you know, from Nazmia, your mother, Mrs. Elder, like she had to play best she could, you know, best mother, and fill in the void and find other father figures. And so these women are having to do both. They're having to explain, you know, kind of raise their child with this. And you want to talk about like just everything that's going through. Like Amanda doesn't train jiu-jitsu, my wife Amanda, but she is mentally tough. The things that she has to go through, just even with childbirth to raising the kids, to which of course I help, but she's without question she sees them more than I do. So like I think the mental strength that comes with it's a natural manifestation for women to train jiu-jitsu because they're already more mentally equipped to handle it. A lot of men aren't. Like there's just a lot of men, and I'll use the term boys, because you become a man based on when you accept the responsibilities of a man, not when you turn 18. And so a lot of boys come in here and they are 26, living with their parents, pissing away money like a drunken sailor, really no real goals, no real ambitions. They're not being forced to grow anywhere. And they're like, yeah, I think I want to try it. They've never been forced to make a real decision in their life. And so they're like, let me think about it. Okay, cool. You're a third of the way through your life. Think about it and get back to me and let me know when you want to start. So now you mentioned this at the beginning of the show. I want to bring it up. So we talked about men and women. Is there an attraction of transgender to jiu-jitsu? I don't know a single transgender grappler, by the way. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So one of the questions that came in was, are there any transgenders grappling, or any, I don't know, what is it called? Non-binary or gay grapplers? You know, I think
I'm sure there's plenty of gay grapplers, but what you can be a gay man and still fight in the man's division.
Yeah.
I want to meet the boy who identifies as a girl and wants to fight my daughter. I want to meet that guy.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why we're taking that question is because before I started jiu-jitsu, that was one of my first questions. I knew it was like, okay, this is like wrestling, and it's a close combat type of art, and I don't know who I'm going to get close with. And it's actually a concern of anybody who signs up in jiu-jitsu is the intentions of the other person, but and like who they are, what their background is. And I would answer it in two parts. Number one, for anybody training jiu-jitsu or anybody interested in jiu-jitsu, when somebody gets you in one of many jiu-jitsu positions, doesn't matter what gender they are, how they identify themselves as, gay, heterosexual, or whatever, the pressure that you feel is like I'm dying type pressure. Like I'm very uncomfortable. It's not a violation of like, it's not a sexual violation. It's like I'm choking. I can't breathe. I can't move my arms. I can't move my legs. Saying that, in the 15 plus years, I've seen different people from different backgrounds, different sexual orientations, backgrounds walk in, but in 15 years, I've never seen them stay. Never.
So
I'm not saying they're not out there, but I've never seen them stay and stick around. I've never seen transgender.
I'll answer that with this. Like, if you think that jiu-jitsu is going to be a turn-on, just throw your wife in the Kimura next time you want sexy time, and tell me how quickly that activity dies. Yeah. Like it's not an intimate, it's not a sexually intimate, arousing sport.
No,
it's not. For 99.9% of people. And again, the people who do find that sort of pain pleasurable, I've never met one who trains jiu-jitsu, because they have hobbies that we might as well live on two different planets. Their life, life don't intersect.
There's a show called Billions, and one of the star characters actually does jiu-jitsu so he can get choked out because he has a fetish for getting beat up and abused. So he actually picked up jiu-jitsu.
It's in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, it's in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's what happens when you let Hollywood. My goal is to keep Hollywood outside of jiu-jitsu about as much as possible, like, because they just have a way of perverting everything. So, but that's kind of where my stance on those. So,
my stance is it's just I haven't really seen it, and it's not there, and for the most part, you're at a good place in jiu-jitsu if you would invite 50 to 70% of the people that you train with over your house, or go out with them for dinner or something like that. If you're if the majority of the people that you train with or parents around are, from what you see, their behavior, you wouldn't mind hanging out with them outside if you saw them, or for dinner, or a visit for the kids, or, whatever guys do, smoke cigars, whatever. Then you're in the right place. If there's not many people in that gym that you would ever associate with outside, then it's probably not attracting the type of people that I would want to be around. So I'd say majority of my members, they're really, really good people. I mean, we do not accept anybody into the program. Just yesterday and the day before, we had to turn some people away and said, we're not a fit for you right now, Right. So, but that's that.
So that's it, guys. So if you are, the question comes up, I'm just going to add this. If you're thinking about jiu-jitsu, first off, if you liked any of this, right? Like, help us out a lot. To date, I just want to be transparent with you guys and what we've been paid to do the podcast. I've received a check for a total of $0. I don't know, Mo, did you make more than I did? Yeah, so I don't get paid by this. I mean,
I made $0 more than you.
Yeah, right. So Professor's Choice is one of our sponsors. Again, they're just kind of covering our time to do this. They Professor's Choice body soap. But we don't do this podcast for the money. We do this because these are questions that come up. General things, jiu-jitsu is growing, so we're kind of get some exposure to this. This is stuff that didn't exist. This stuff that didn't exist when I was around jiu-jitsu. So if you want sport jiu-jitsu, we train in sport jiu-jitsu. That's why I really like this dynamic. Professor Muhammad, we're under Alvarez Jiu-Jitsu and Lee Jiu-Jitsu, top 10 in the world. We train sport jiu-jitsu. But if you're like, yo, I just don't want to get beat up, and I don't want my kid to get beat up, and I really care more about the self-defense aspect, it's very transparent. That's more what I focus on. Do I compete in sport jiu-jitsu? Yeah. Do I use self-defense more techniques? Yeah, I do, because that's what I want to train for. So we accommodate both, right? Just the question always comes up, do we do firearm training, knife training? No, I'm not. You're not bringing your Glock and your butcher knife onto my mats. If you want that, go somewhere else. But generally, if you train jiu-jitsu, you're going to be better equipped, and it's going to absolutely improve every other area of your life as a result. So, and apparently now it's not much more expensive than school sports. I won't get over that. I won't get over that you had to pay for school sports. I thought this was free the whole time. Now you're paying $150. That's a different podcast, a different time, I guess. But we're going to go ahead and see you guys on the mats. I'm Coach David. We have
Professor Muhammad. Good to have you guys. Guys, don't forget to like and share, subscribe. Help us out. Tag us if you guys have any comments on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram.
Awesome. We'll see you guys
on the mats.